You've been lied to about visualization. Every guru teaching manifestation tells you to close your eyes, imagine what you want, feel good about it, and wait for the universe to deliver. That's not visualization. That's daydreaming with spiritual labels attached. Charles Haanel spent 27 years studying why some people's mental images manifested into physical reality, while others visualized for decades and got nothing. What he discovered will completely change how you approach this practice, and it explains why you've been frustrated with visualization techniques that promise miracles but deliver disappointment. The difference between effective visualization and useless fantasy has nothing to do with how much you want something or how positive you feel. It has everything to do with technical precision in how you construct and hold mental images. Here's what actually happens when most people try to visualize. They sit down, close their eyes, and try to picture themselves with the thing they want. A new house, a relationship, money in the bank, whatever. But the image is vague, unstable, flickering. It lasts maybe 10 seconds before their mind wanders to what they need to buy at the grocery store or that awkward conversation from yesterday. They bring their attention back, try to recreate the image, but now it's different from the first attempt. No consistency, no clarity, no sustained focus. Then they feel frustrated that visualization isn't working, which generates emotional energy of lack and doubt, which actually pushes the desired outcome further away. Haanel documented hundreds of cases of people spending years on ineffective visualization, and in every single case, the problem wasn't that visualization doesn't work. The problem was that they never learned the actual technique. They were given a simplified, watered-down version that skips all the foundational skills required for real visualization power. And here's the part that's going to change everything for you. Haanel didn't teach visualization as a manifestation shortcut. He taught it as the final stage of a systematic mental training program that takes weeks to develop properly. You can't just jump straight to visualizing your goals if you haven't first mastered concentration, if you haven't developed the ability to create stable mental images, if you haven't learned to generate and sustain specific emotional frequencies. That's like trying to play a piano concerto when you've never practiced scales. The information about which notes to play is useless without the developed capability to actually play them. Most teachers skip the development phase because it's not sexy, it's not quick, it requires discipline and patience. So they give you the final technique without the foundational skills, and then you blame yourself when it doesn't work. But wait, if visualization requires all this prerequisite development, what exactly are those foundational skills? What's the actual step-by-step training system Haanel created? And why did he structure it so specifically? That question leads us into understanding what visualization really is according to Haanel, and the definition alone will show you why everything you've been taught is incomplete. Most people think visualization means imagining something you want. Haanel said that's backwards. Real visualization isn't about creating mental pictures of external things you desire. It's about impressing specific images into your subconscious mind with such clarity and emotional intensity that your subconscious accepts them as reality and begins automatically directing your conscious behavior, your perception, and your actions toward manifesting that reality in physical form. The image isn't the goal. The image is the blueprint you're giving your subconscious to construct. And your subconscious is an obedient servant that will build exactly what you give it, but only if the blueprint is clear, detailed, consistent, and energized with belief. Vague images produce vague results. Clear images held with emotional conviction produce precise results. That's the law. And Haanel proved it works with mathematical consistency when applied correctly. Here's the distinction that changes everything. When you imagine something casually, you're using your conscious mind to create a temporary mental picture that disappears as soon as you stop focusing on it. That's fantasy, not visualization. When you visualize correctly according to Haanel's method, you're using concentrated conscious focus to etch an image so deeply into your subconscious that it remains there even when you're not actively thinking about it. Your subconscious then works 24/7 on that image, influencing your intuition, your decisions, your awareness of opportunities, your automatic behaviors. It's like programming a computer. The conscious mind is the programmer. The subconscious is the operating system. Most people try to run the program from the programmer instead of installing it into the operating system. Haanel's technique is about proper installation. Once installed, the program runs automatically without conscious effort. And here's why this definition matters so much practically. If visualization is about subconscious programming, not conscious wishing, then the quality of your visualization is measured by one thing. How deeply and permanently has the image impressed itself into your subconscious? You'll know it's worked when you start having dreams about the desired outcome, when you catch yourself spontaneously thinking thoughts and making decisions aligned with that reality, when opportunities related to it start appearing with unusual frequency. Those are signs that the image has taken root in your subconscious and is now organizing your entire psychological system around manifesting it. But here's what nobody tells you. Before you can impress anything into your subconscious, you have to quiet your conscious mind enough that the subconscious becomes receptive. And that requires a specific practice that Haanel considered the foundation of everything. Without this foundation, you're trying to plant seeds in concrete. But wait, what is this foundational practice that makes the subconscious receptive? And how exactly do you do it? That's what we're exploring next, and it's the part of Haanel's system that almost every modern teacher completely ignores. Stay with me, because this is where most people's visualization practice fails before it even begins. Haanel insisted that every visualization session must start with what he called entering the silence. Not silence as in the absence of external noise, but silence as in the complete stilling of internal mental chatter. Your conscious mind is constantly generating thoughts, jumping from topic to topic, narrating your experience, planning, worrying, remembering. That mental noise makes it impossible for images to impress deeply into your subconscious. It's like trying to write on water. The surface is too disturbed for anything to stick. The silence is about calming that surface until it becomes still as glass. And only then can you inscribe images that will remain. This isn't meditation for relaxation. This is a specific technical state required for effective subconscious programming. Here's how Haanel taught entering the silence, and this is the exact protocol he gave in the Master Key system. Find a quiet room where you won't be disturbed. Sit in a comfortable position, spine straight, but not rigid. Close your eyes. For the first 5 minutes, do absolutely nothing except observe your breathing. Don't control it, don't deepen it, just notice it. In, out, in, out. Your mind will wander constantly. Thoughts will pull your attention away. That's normal. The practice is noticing when you've wandered and gently bringing attention back to breath. No frustration, no judgment, just persistent, gentle return. After 5 minutes of breath observation, shift to releasing muscle tension. Starting with your scalp, consciously relax every muscle group downward. Forehead, eyes, jaw, neck, shoulders, arms, hands, chest, abdomen, hips, legs, feet. Spend 30 seconds on each area, actually feeling the tension dissolve. By the time you reach your feet, your body should feel heavy, relaxed, almost melting into the chair. And here's what happens when you've successfully entered the silence. Your breathing becomes slower and deeper automatically. Your body feels weightless or very heavy. You're not sure which. Thoughts still arise, but they're quieter, more spacious, less demanding of attention. There's a quality of alert calm, awake but deeply peaceful. Haanel called this the receptive state, where your conscious mind has stepped back enough that your subconscious becomes accessible. In this state, whatever you impress through focused visualization will sink deep. If you try to visualize without first achieving this state, you're working only with surface consciousness, and surface consciousness can't program the subconscious effectively. The silence is the gateway. Every successful visualization session in Haanel's system begins here. But here's what trips people up. Entering the silence sounds simple, but for most people it takes weeks of daily practice before they can reliably achieve it. The mind resists stillness. It wants to stay busy, stay in control. Learning to quiet it is a skill, not something that just happens because you sit quietly once. But wait, once you've entered the silence and your subconscious is receptive, what exactly do you do next? What's the first thing you visualize? And how do you know if you're doing it correctly? Those questions lead us to the next critical stage of Haanel's training system. And getting this stage right determines whether everything that follows will work. Here's something that'll blow your mind about Haanel's visualization system. The first 4 weeks of his 24-week Master Key System course don't involve visualizing your goals at all. Week 1 through 4 is pure concentration training on random objects with zero emotional attachment. Why? Because Haanel understood that before you can hold a clear image of something you desperately want, you have to develop the mental muscles of sustained focus and image stability on things you don't care about emotionally. If you can't visualize an orange with complete clarity for 5 minutes straight, you definitely can't visualize financial abundance or perfect relationship without your emotions and desperation distorting the image. Most teachers skip this foundation and go straight to goal visualization, which is why most people get terrible results. You're trying to run before you can walk. Here's the exact week 1 exercise Haanel gave, and I want you to understand how precisely structured this is. After entering the silence, bring to mind a simple physical object you're familiar with. An apple, a key, a coffee cup, whatever. Now reconstruct that object in your mind with as much sensory detail as possible. See its color, its shape, its size. Notice the texture of its surface. If it's an apple, see the red or green skin, the slight variations in color, the small dots and imperfections. See the stem at the top. Rotate the image in your mind, looking at it from different angles. Hold that image steady for as long as you can without it fading, morphing, or your mind wandering. At first, most people can't hold focus for more than 30 seconds. The image wavers, becomes unclear, or their attention jumps to something else entirely. That's fine. The practice is noticing when focus breaks and gently bringing it back. Do this for 15 minutes daily. Just 15 minutes of practicing sustained focus on a neutral object. And here's what happens when you practice this consistently for even 1 week. Your attention span increases dramatically. You start noticing that you can hold the mental image clearer and longer each day. By week 2, you might be able to hold a stable, vivid mental picture for 2 to 3 minutes without wavering. By week 4, you can maintain perfect clarity for the entire 15-minute session. That capability is the foundation for everything that follows. Once you can hold focus on a neutral object, you can hold focus on your desired outcome. Once you can create vivid sensory detail for something simple, you can create vivid detail for complex scenarios. Haanel's system is progressive development. Each week builds capability that makes the next week possible. Skipping straight to goal visualization without this foundation is why people get frustrated and quit. They don't have the mental muscles developed yet. But here's the question that naturally follows. Once you've mastered holding clear images of simple objects, how do you transition to visualizing your actual goals and desires? What's the bridge between object concentration and outcome manifestation? And what mistakes do people typically make during this transition that sabotage their results? That's what we're addressing next, and understanding this transition is absolutely critical for getting real-world results from your visualization practice. In 2 minutes, you'll discover the exact moment in Haanel's training where you switch from neutral object visualization to goal-directed visualization, and getting this timing right is everything. Jump too early, and your desires will contaminate your practice with desperate energy that repels results. Wait too long, and you're just building skills without applying them. Haanel spent years figuring out the optimal progression, and what he discovered is that most people need 4 to 6 weeks of neutral practice before they're ready to visualize outcomes effectively. Why? Because by that point, they've developed 3 crucial capabilities: the ability to create vivid mental images, the ability to hold those images stable for extended periods, and most importantly, the ability to visualize without emotional charge. That last one is the key. Neutral object practice teaches you to visualize calmly, without neediness. And that calm, focused state is exactly what you need when visualizing your desires. Here's the transition protocol Haanel outlined in weeks 5 through 8 of his system. You continue your daily silence practice, entering that receptive state. But now, instead of visualizing a neutral object, you visualize a desired outcome. And here's the critical instruction everyone misses. You don't visualize having the thing. You visualize being the person who has it. If you want financial abundance, don't visualize piles of money appearing. Visualize yourself making decisions, living a lifestyle, having conversations that reflect the consciousness of a financially abundant person. If you want a romantic relationship, don't visualize the perfect partner appearing. Visualize yourself as someone who is already complete, confident, and attractive, living in a way that naturally draws meaningful connection. See yourself in specific scenarios, dressed a certain way, carrying yourself differently, speaking with different energy. The image is about identity transformation, not circumstance acquisition. And here's why this approach works when the other approach fails. When you visualize having things you don't have, your subconscious immediately recognizes the contradiction with your current reality, and that creates tension, doubt, and resistance. But when you visualize being the kind of person who naturally has those things, there's no contradiction. You're not claiming to have something you don't. You're claiming a state of consciousness, and consciousness can shift instantly through focused practice. Your subconscious accepts this more readily. And here's the magic. When your subconscious accepts the new identity as real, it automatically begins directing your behavior to match that identity. You start making different choices, noticing different opportunities, presenting yourself differently to the world. The external circumstances shift as a natural consequence of the internal shift. But wait, if you're supposed to visualize your new identity instead of your desired circumstances, how exactly do you make that image vivid and real? What sensory details do you include? And how do you know if you're doing it right versus just daydreaming? Those questions lead us to what Haanel considered the most important technical element of visualization, the one that transforms mental pictures from fantasy into subconscious programming. Get this element right, and your visualizations manifest with shocking consistency. Get it wrong, and you're just wasting time. The most powerful technique I saved for revealing right now is what separates professional visualizers from amateurs. Haanel discovered that the more senses you activate in your mental image, the deeper it impresses into your subconscious. Most people only use visual imagery. they see themselves in their desired situation. But that's using maybe 20% of your brain's imaginative capacity. Real visualization, according to Haanel, activates all five senses simultaneously, creating an experience so rich and detailed that your subconscious can't distinguish it from actual memory. And when your subconscious treats a visualization as memory of something that already happened, it stops resisting it as fantasy and starts organizing your reality to match it. This is the secret that Haanel's most successful students mastered, and it's why their manifestations appeared so much faster than people doing basic visualization. Here's how five-sense visualization works in practice, and I want you to really get this because it's game-changing. Let's say you're visualizing yourself as a successful entrepreneur giving a presentation to potential investors. Don't just see yourself standing in front of them. Feel the weight of the presentation clicker in your hand. Notice the texture, the temperature, the slight pressure of your thumb on the button. Hear the sound of your own voice projecting confidently through the room. Notice the acoustics, the slight echo. Hear the rustle of papers as investors take notes. Feel the texture of your clothes, the fit of your shirt, the pressure of shoes on your feet. Feel the temperature of the room, maybe slightly cool from air conditioning. Smell the leather of the conference room chairs, the faint scent of coffee. Taste the dryness in your mouth from speaking, the residue of mint from the gum you had before presenting. Engage every sensory channel your brain has simultaneously, creating a full-spectrum experience. And here's what happens neurologically when you practice this kind of rich, multisensory visualization. Brain scans show that imagining an experience with full sensory detail activates almost the same neural pathways as actually having that experience. Your brain literally can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined event and a real event, especially when emotion is involved. So when you practice five-sense visualization of your desired identity consistently, you're essentially creating memories of a future that hasn't happened yet. Your subconscious accumulates these memories, and because the subconscious is primarily concerned with maintaining consistency between your self-concept and your behavior, it begins steering you toward actions and decisions that match these accumulated experiences. You're not hoping to become successful. You're remembering being successful, and your behavior naturally aligns with those memories. But here's the element that makes this even more powerful. The one element that most people completely miss. You can have perfect five-sense visualization, but if you don't add this final ingredient, the image stays mentally vivid but emotionally dead. And dead images don't program the subconscious effectively. What's the ingredient? That's what we're diving into next, and it's the difference between visualization as interesting mental exercise and visualization as reality-bending power tool. You know what the missing ingredient is that makes visualization actually work? Emotion. Not any emotion, but the specific emotions you would authentically feel if the visualized scene was your current reality. Haanel called this emotional harmonization, and he said it's the element that gives mental images their power to impress the subconscious and attract corresponding circumstances. Here's why. Your subconscious doesn't think in words or images. It thinks in feelings. When you visualize without emotion, you're speaking a language your subconscious doesn't understand. But when you combine a clear image with the appropriate emotional frequency, you're communicating in the native language of your subconscious, and it responds immediately. The emotion is the carrier wave that delivers the image deep into subconscious programming. Without emotion, the image is just surface consciousness activity that evaporates as soon as you open your eyes. Here's where most people screw this up completely. They generate the wrong emotion. They visualize their desired outcome and feel excited, hopeful, yearning, desperate. All of those emotions contain the energetic signature of lack. Excitement is great, but if it's excitement about getting something you don't have, you're reinforcing the reality of not having it. Hope, by definition, means you're uncertain. Yearning means you're focused on the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Haanel said that the only emotion that works for effective visualization is the emotion of already having, of fulfilled completion, of satisfied possession. Not future satisfaction, but present satisfaction. You have to feel now what you would feel then. If you're visualizing financial abundance, don't feel excited about getting rich. Feel the calm confidence, security, and freedom you would feel if you were already financially secure. Those are completely different emotional states, and only the second one works. And here's how you generate authentic present tense emotion during visualization. You can't fake it or force it, but you can enter it through a kind of mental method acting. Before you start your visualization, spend a few minutes remembering a time when you felt the emotion you're trying to generate. If you're working with confidence, remember a moment when you felt genuinely confident. Recreate that memory in detail until you feel the emotion arising in your body. Then, while holding that emotional state, begin your visualization of your desired future identity. The emotion from the memory transfers to the new image, and because emotions don't have timestamps, your subconscious experiences the combination as a present moment reality. The more consistently you practice visualizing with appropriate harmonized emotion, the more your emotional baseline shifts toward that frequency, and the more your external reality reorganizes to match. But here's what nobody tells you about this process. There's a specific way to inhabit the visualization that makes emotional harmonization 10 times more powerful. It's a technique Haanel called living in the image as if it's happening now. And when done correctly, it collapses the perceived time between visualization and manifestation dramatically. That's what we're exploring next, and mastering this technique is what separates people who visualize occasionally from people who use visualization as a precision reality engineering tool. Here's something that's going to completely change your visualization practice. Most people visualize themselves from a third-person perspective, like watching a movie of their ideal life. They see themselves succeeding, being happy, having what they want, but they're observing it from outside. Haanel said that's why their visualizations don't manifest. You're not supposed to watch yourself living your desired reality. You're supposed to be yourself living it, first person, right now. This is what he meant by the as-if technique. During your visualization session, you're not imagining a future version of you experiencing something. You are you, and you're experiencing it now. This isn't a subtle distinction. This is the difference between mental rehearsal and reality programming. When you visualize first person as if, your nervous system responds as if the experience is actually happening, and that physiological response locks the image into your subconscious far more powerfully than any third-person observation ever could. Here's how you practice the as-if technique with precision. Enter the silence. Achieve that receptive subconscious state. Now, instead of picturing yourself in a scene, put yourself in that scene through your own eyes. If you're visualizing giving a successful presentation, don't see yourself on stage. Be on stage, looking out at the audience from your own perspective. See what you would see through your eyes. The faces looking back at you, the conference room, the presentation screen. Feel what you would feel in your body. The steadiness of your stance, the confidence in your chest, the clarity in your mind. Hear what you would hear through your ears. Your voice resonating, the occasional cough from the audience, the appreciative murmurs. Make it first-person present tense, not I will be doing this. I am doing this, right now, in this moment. The more you practice collapsing the distinction between visualization and experience, the more your subconscious accepts it as current reality. And here's what happens when you master the as-if technique. Your behavior in waking life starts naturally matching your visualized state without conscious effort. If you've been visualizing yourself as confident and successful from a first-person perspective consistently for weeks, you'll notice that in actual situations requiring confidence, it's there automatically. You're not pretending or psyching yourself up. The confidence is just present because your subconscious believes that's who you are based on accumulated first-person visualization experiences. This is how Haanel's students achieved such dramatic transformations. They weren't trying to become different people. They were living as different people during visualization until their subconscious updated its operating instructions, and then their waking behavior simply reflected the update. But here's the critical factor that determines how quickly this process works: duration and consistency. You can do perfect technique visualization once and get minimal results, or you can do adequate technique visualization daily for months and transform your entire reality. The laws governing how long and how consistently you need to practice are mathematical, and Haanel discovered the exact formulas. That's what we're examining next, and understanding these laws will prevent you from quitting right before your visualizations would have manifested. Stay till the end, because I'm going to reveal the exact duration formula that Haanel discovered for how long you need to hold a visualization for it to impress your subconscious effectively. This isn't opinion or guesswork. Haanel tested this extensively with his students and documented what worked versus what didn't. Here's what he found. A visualization session shorter than 15 minutes rarely achieves deep subconscious impression, because it takes approximately 10 to 12 minutes for most people to enter the silence and achieve the receptive state. If you only practice for 5 or 10 minutes total, you're spending that entire time just getting into the right state, and you have no time actually impressing the image. But visualizing for longer than 30 minutes in a single session shows diminishing returns because maintaining perfect concentration for extended periods is exhausting. And as you fatigue, your image quality degrades. The sweet spot Haanel identified was 15 to 25 minutes of actual visualization time after achieving the silence. That's long enough for a deep impression, but short enough to maintain quality throughout. Here's the consistency law that's even more important than session duration. One powerful visualization session plants a seed in your subconscious, but it's a fragile seed that can easily be overwritten by contradictory thoughts, doubts, and old patterns if not reinforced. Haanel discovered that you need consistent daily practice for a minimum of 30 days to establish a new mental pattern firmly enough that it starts influencing your automatic behavior. Visualize sporadically once or twice a week, and you're essentially planting seeds that die before they can grow. Your subconscious needs repeated impression to accept the new pattern as permanent rather than temporary. The mechanism is similar to learning any skill. Practice piano once a week for an hour, and you'll make minimal progress. Practice piano daily for 15 minutes, and you'll advance rapidly because you're building neural pathways through consistency. The same principle applies to visualization. Daily practice builds the subconscious programming progressively. Sporadic practice doesn't. And here's the specific protocol Haanel recommended for optimal results. 15 to 25 minutes of visualization practice every single day at the same time of day for at least 90 days. Why 90 days? Because Haanel observed that it takes approximately 60 to 90 days of consistent practice for a new mental pattern to become automatic, embedded deeply enough that you no longer have to consciously maintain it. After 90 days of daily practice, the visualized identity becomes your default state of consciousness. You're no longer trying to be that person during practice. You've become that person, and your external reality naturally organizes around that internal shift. But here's what trips people up. They start strong, practice daily for 2 weeks, don't see immediate dramatic results, and quit. They have no idea they were maybe 30 days away from the tipping point where everything shifts. But wait, what if there was a way to speed up this process? What if there was an advanced technique that creates faster subconscious impression? Haanel discovered one, and he called it the photograph method. It's not taught in any modern courses because it requires more discipline than most people are willing to apply. But for those who master it, the results are dramatically accelerated. That's what we're revealing next. Here's an advanced technique that Haanel taught to students who'd mastered the basics and wanted to accelerate their manifestation timeline. He called it the photograph method, and it works on the principle that your subconscious is more strongly impressed by images associated with strong emotional experiences than by images generated through calm meditation. Think about it. You can easily remember emotionally charged events from years ago in vivid detail, but you've forgotten countless neutral moments. Why? Because emotion acts like a chemical fixative in photography, making certain images permanent in your memory. Haanel realized he could exploit this mechanism deliberately. If you could generate strong positive emotion while simultaneously holding your visualization, you could impress that image into your subconscious far more deeply and quickly than through neutral practice alone. The challenge is generating authentic strong emotion on command without tipping into desperation or neediness. Here's how the photograph method works in practice, and this requires some setup. First, identify a memory from your past that generates strong positive emotion when you recall it. A moment of genuine joy, love, triumph, or deep peace. Something that makes you feel amazing when you think about it. Practice recalling this memory until you can access the emotional state within 30 seconds. This becomes your emotional anchor. Now, during your visualization session, after entering the silence, recall your emotional anchor memory until the feeling is strong in your body. Then, while maintaining that high vibration emotional state, transition smoothly into your goal visualization. You're essentially borrowing the emotional intensity from a real memory and transferring it to your desired future memory. The combination of vivid first-person visualization with strong, authentic, positive emotion creates what Haanel called a fixed photograph in your subconscious. One session using this method can equal a week of standard visualization in terms of subconscious impression. And here's why this technique is so powerful, but also why it's dangerous if misused. Strong emotion impresses whatever image you're holding, positive or negative. If you practice this technique while anxious or fearful, you'll deeply impress images of your fears manifesting, which is obviously counterproductive. That's why Haanel only taught this to advanced students who'd already mastered emotional control and neutral visualization. You need to be able to consciously direct your emotional state before you start using emotion as an amplification tool. When used correctly by someone with those foundations, the photograph method can compress months of manifestation timeline into weeks. But there's one more critical element to this entire process that we haven't addressed yet. The energy you bring to visualization matters as much as the technique itself. Show up with desperate, needy, trying to fix my broken life energy, and no technique will work. Show up with calm certainty, and even imperfect technique produces results. Understanding and avoiding desperate energy is what we're tackling next, and getting this right might be the single most important factor in whether your visualizations manifest or not. You know what kills more visualizations than bad technique? Desperate energy. Haanel said that the moment you visualize from a place of desperation, neediness, or trying to escape your current circumstances, you've sabotaged the entire practice. Why? Because desperation is the emotional signature of lack. When you're desperate, you're intensely focused on what you don't have, on the problem you're trying to solve, on how badly you need things to change. That emotional frequency completely contradicts the as-if living technique, where you're supposed to feel as though you already have what you desire. You can't simultaneously feel desperate lack and satisfied completion. The frequencies are incompatible, and your subconscious responds to the dominant emotional frequency, not your conscious intention. So if you're visualizing abundance while feeling desperately poor, your subconscious is receiving the poverty signal, not the abundance signal. Here's how to identify if you're visualizing from desperate energy. And be brutally honest with yourself here. After a visualization session, notice what emotions arise when you open your eyes and return to regular awareness. If you feel frustrated that you're not in the visualized reality yet, that's desperate energy. If you immediately start planning and scheming how to force the manifestation to happen, that's desperate energy. If you feel anxious about whether it's working or not, that's desperate energy. All of those responses reveal that you don't actually believe the visualization represents your true reality. You're hoping, wishing, trying to make something happen that you secretly fear won't happen. The antidote, according to Haanel, is cultivating what he called calm, expectant faith. You hold your vision, you practice consistently, and you trust completely that the manifestation is inevitable without needing to know when or how. It's the attitude of planting a seed and then letting it grow without digging it up every day to check progress. And here's how you develop calm, expectant faith instead of desperate neediness. Separate your visualization practice from outcome attachment. Visualize not because you need results, but because you're systematically training your consciousness and programming your subconscious as a disciplined practice. Make it about the process, not the outcome. Find genuine appreciation for your current life circumstances, even as you're working to improve them. Gratitude for what is neutralizes desperation about what isn't. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop needing your visualization to manifest, the moment you're genuinely okay either way, that's when manifestations tend to appear rapidly. Because at that point, you're no longer sending contradictory signals. You're vibrating pure aligned frequency without resistance. But here's the question that everyone asks at this point. How do you know if your visualization practice is working? What are the signs that your subconscious is accepting the programming? And how can you test the quality of your visualization without undermining the process through doubt? Those are crucial questions, and Haanel provided specific diagnostic criteria that let you assess your progress objectively. That's what we're examining next, and having these assessment tools prevents you from either quitting prematurely or persisting with ineffective technique. You'll discover Haanel's 5 diagnostic tests for whether your visualization practice is actually working or whether you're just wasting time. These aren't subjective feelings or wishful thinking. These are objective markers that show whether the image has impressed your subconscious or is still surface-level conscious fantasy. Haanel developed these criteria by observing his successful students versus unsuccessful ones and identifying exactly what differentiated them. Use these tests on yourself regularly, and you'll know precisely whether you're on track or need to adjust your approach. The first test is dream content. If your visualization is impressing your subconscious, you'll start having dreams related to your visualized identity or situation. Not necessarily exact replicas, but thematic elements will appear. Your dreams are direct communication from your subconscious. So, recurring dream themes that align with your visualization indicate that the programming is taking root. The second test is spontaneous thought patterns. Throughout your day, when you're not actively visualizing, notice what thoughts arise spontaneously. If your visualization is working, you'll catch yourself naturally thinking thoughts that align with your visualized identity, planning actions that make sense for that identity, imagining conversations or scenarios that fit that reality. These spontaneous thoughts indicate that your subconscious is beginning to accept the new pattern as legitimate and is organizing your conscious thought around it. The third test is opportunity synchronicities. When your subconscious accepts a new identity as real, it begins directing your attention and behavior in ways that align with that identity. As a result, you'll start noticing opportunities, information, and connections relevant to your visualized outcome appearing with unusual frequency. This isn't magic. It's your subconscious directing your perception to notice things that were always there, but that you previously filtered out because they weren't relevant to your old identity. The fourth test is behavioral change without effort. If you're visualizing yourself as confident, and you notice that in actual situations you're naturally speaking up, making eye contact, and taking initiative without consciously trying to be confident, that's confirmation that the subconscious programming is affecting your automatic behavior. The hallmark of effective visualization is that changes happen naturally, not through willpower or conscious performance. And the fifth test is emotional baseline shift. If your visualization is working, your default emotional state will gradually shift toward the emotions you've been practicing during visualization. If you've been visualizing with feelings of confidence, abundance, and peace, you'll notice those emotions becoming more frequent in daily life, even in situations unrelated to your specific goal. Your subconscious is updating your emotional operating system. These 5 tests give you objective feedback about whether your practice is effective. But here's what you need to know. If you're not seeing these markers after consistent daily practice for at least 30 days, something in your technique needs adjustment. And that brings us to the most common mistakes people make with visualization, mistakes that render even the most disciplined practice ineffective. Identifying and correcting these mistakes is what separates people who get results from people who give up frustrated. That's what we're exposing next. The most powerful insight I saved for this section is that most visualization failures aren't about lack of effort or discipline. They're about specific technical errors that sabotage the process despite your best intentions. Haanel identified 8 common mistakes that appeared repeatedly in students who weren't getting results, and correcting even one of these mistakes often led to breakthrough manifestations within weeks. Let's go through them methodically so you can audit your own practice. Mistake number 1 is inconsistent imagery. Each time you visualize, you create a slightly different image of your desired outcome. One day you see yourself in a corner office. Next day you visualize working from home. Another day you imagine a completely different career. Your subconscious receives conflicting instructions and doesn't know which pattern to establish. The solution is creating one specific detailed scenario and visualizing that exact scenario consistently every single day for the entire 90-day period. Lock in the image and repeat it until it's burned into your subconscious. Mistake number 2 is passive observation instead of active participation. You watch yourself succeeding like a spectator instead of being yourself succeeding from first-person perspective. We covered this earlier, but it's so common it's worth repeating. If you're seeing yourself from outside your body, you're doing it wrong. You need to be in your body, experiencing the visualization through your own senses in real time. Mistake number 3 is insufficient sensory detail. Your visualization is only visual, maybe with some sound, but you're not engaging touch, taste, smell, emotional feeling, or physical sensation. Rich multisensory detail is what makes the image real to your subconscious. Without it, the image is too abstract to create strong neural patterning. Spend time developing each sensory dimension of your visualization deliberately. Mistake number 4 is wrong emotional energy. We've discussed this, but the specific error to watch for is feeling emotions about getting something rather than having it. Excitement about a future change versus satisfaction with present reality. The first is lack-based, the second is abundance-based. Only the abundance frequency programs your subconscious effectively. Mistake number 5 is excessive duration without breaks. Trying to visualize for an hour straight leads to mental fatigue and degraded image quality. Better to do 20 high-quality minutes than 60 mediocre minutes. Mistake number 6 is skipping the silence foundation, jumping straight into goal visualization without first achieving the receptive subconscious state means you're working only with surface consciousness. 10 to 15 minutes of silence before visualization isn't optional. It's essential for the technique to work. Mistake number 7 is outcome desperation. Checking constantly for manifestation signs, getting anxious or frustrated when results don't appear quickly, trying to force things through conscious planning and action disconnected from intuitive guidance. This desperate energy contradicts the calm faith required for effective programming. And mistake number 8, the most subtle and most destructive, is visualizing what you think you should want rather than what you authentically desire. If you're visualizing wealth because you think that's what successful people do, but you don't actually care about money, your visualization will lack authentic emotional energy and won't impress your subconscious powerfully. Haanel said you must visualize outcomes aligned with your genuine values and desires, not borrowed ambitions from society or family. If you recognize yourself making any of these mistakes, don't be discouraged. The fact that you can identify the error means you can correct it. And correcting just 1 or 2 of these errors often unlocks results that seemed impossible before. But here's what brings all of this together. You need a complete daily protocol that integrates every element we've discussed into one systematic practice. That's what Haanel gave his students, and that's what we're laying out next in precise step-by-step detail. This is the complete system, nothing left out, exactly as Haanel taught it. Now, you have the complete framework for understanding Haanel's creative visualization system. Every principle, every technique, every common mistake exposed. The only thing left is integration. How do you take all this information and turn it into a daily practice that actually transforms your consciousness and manifests your desires? Haanel's complete daily protocol is what his successful students followed, and it's structured as a non-negotiable routine that takes approximately 35 to 45 minutes per day. Sounds like a lot, until you realize this is 35 minutes that will fundamentally reprogram your subconscious and potentially change the entire trajectory of your life. Compare that to the hours most people waste on social media daily without getting any lasting value. This is the best investment of time you can make. Here's the exact structure. Morning protocol immediately after waking. Spend 5 minutes in gratitude practice before getting out of bed. Mentally review 3 to 5 things you're genuinely grateful for in your current life. This establishes abundance frequency and prevents you from starting the day in lack consciousness. Then, find your visualization space. Sit comfortably, close eyes, spend 10 to 15 minutes entering the silence through breath awareness and progressive muscle relaxation. Once you've achieved that calm, receptive state, transition to your creative visualization. Spend 15 to 20 minutes visualizing your specific desired identity scenario. First-person perspective, full 5-sense immersion, present tense as if living, appropriate emotional harmonization. Keep the image consistent, the same scenario every day. After completing the visualization, spend 2 minutes releasing attachment to outcomes. Mentally affirm that you trust the manifestation process completely and that you're willing to let it unfold in whatever timing and form serves your highest good. Then, open your eyes and begin your day. Evening protocol before bed. This is optional but highly recommended, especially for accelerating results. Spend 10 minutes before sleep doing an abbreviated version of your morning visualization. The reason evening practice is powerful is that images held in consciousness as you fall asleep continue processing in your subconscious throughout the night. Your subconscious is most active during sleep, and if you give it a clear, focused image right before sleeping, it will work on that image for 6 to 8 hours without interference from conscious thought. Many of Haanel's students reported breakthrough insights, intuitive guidance, and symbolic dreams related to their visualizations appearing after implementing evening practice. The combination of morning and evening sessions creates compound programming that doubles or triples the rate of subconscious impression compared to once daily practice. And here's the final critical instruction that Haanel emphasized repeatedly. During your waking hours between visualization sessions, live as if the visualization is your current reality. Make decisions from that identity. When faced with choices, ask yourself, what would the person I'm visualizing do in this situation? And do that. Gradually align your daily behavior with your visualized identity. This isn't pretending or faking. This is consciously choosing to embody the consciousness you're programming into your subconscious. The more your waking behavior matches your visualized identity, the faster your external circumstances will shift to reflect that identity. Most people visualize for 20 minutes and then spend the other 23 hours and 40 minutes thinking and acting from their old identity. That contradicts the programming and slows or prevents manifestation. Haanel's most successful students lived their visualizations between sessions, and that's why their results were so dramatic and rapid. This is Haanel's complete creative visualization system, not the watered-down pop psychology version. The actual technical method he taught to businessmen and serious students who wanted measurable results. It requires discipline, consistency, and patience. It's not a magic pill or a weekend workshop technique. It's a 90-day minimum commitment to systematic mental training that builds new neural pathways and reprograms your subconscious operating system. But if you do it correctly, if you follow the protocol precisely as outlined, you will experience changes in your consciousness, your behavior, and your life circumstances that most people would call miraculous, but that Haanel would call inevitable results of applied mental laws. Subscribe to this channel and hit the bell icon because I'll continue breaking down the most powerful techniques from Haanel's work and other forgotten masters, showing you exactly how to apply them in modern life for real results. And comment below which aspect of this visualization system you're going to start implementing first. Are you working on entering the silence? Developing five-sense detail? Correcting desperate energy? Building daily consistency? I read every comment and respond to everyone because this isn't just information to consume. This is practice to embody, and I'm here to support your transformation into someone who consciously creates reality through disciplined mental focus, rather than someone who unconsciously reacts to circumstances. You now have everything you need. The question is whether you'll actually use it.